What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another impromptu live. Your host, the Witch Doctor. Didn't really let anybody know. Just kind of was at the gym doing cardio. Got the robe on. It's actually really just drying the sweat from the cardio. but let my guys know real quick. Hey, I'm going on live. Cross Bible today is doing a live stream for the first time, so I'm really excited to see what he talks about. Considering I feel cool to email back and forth with him just a little bit, trying to learn what I can from people who have formal educations and such, and then perhaps not formal educations and others. So let everybody know. But one thing I was going to look at, two different things. The Gnostic Informant, the last episode, the episode before we went live last, was going to review that some while we were waiting on some of our guys. And then I was also going to look at one of the papers that I did cite in the book, as well as in one of my research papers for college on the claim being, obviously entheogens and early religious practices, blah, blah, blah. That's all we've been really talking about here on this channel. So we're going to get it rolling. I'm going to try to pull up the comments and see what we got. Hey, what's up, Ridley Silver Lake? Good to see you. Good to see you. J Frog, what's up, man? I could probably actually drop the link, you know what I mean, today and do kind of a chat roulette thing and see how terrible it gets. Who wants to randomly jump in? That's cool. If it's horrible, I can just take it down. You know what I mean? Let's see. I'm getting my gym game on too. Yeah, it's an old career for me. So I took a break for a little while, gained plenty of weight this past year. I was probably almost 300 pounds. I'm almost 6 foot, and there's tons of muscle there. I have a very big frame for sure. I'm just not as, small and in like the joints and stuff like that as other guys. And had to take a break because I was doing all this landscaping and I couldn't go to the gym without it just being hell. So I got fat and everything, and now I'm back in it and whatnot. But I'll show all y'all when it's getting closer to the show. I'll throw some pictures up and show everybody what the final turnout will look like. But anyway, one thing I was going to pull up real quick. All right, so we have one of the things here. I'm going to zoom in some. Now, some of y'all have already seen this. I know some of y'all have already seen this, whether it's through ResearchGate, which me and TigerShark have talked about a couple of times. TigerShark. Maybe not. Oh, my God. I did not mean to just create a nickname for my boy. Oh, my God. TigerShark with a K. Animals as magical ingredients in Greek magical papyri, right? So we've heard of the PGM, we've heard the Greek magical papyri. For those of y'all that are in Marcel's Discord, which I do have listed in the description of the channel, we try to share as much of this documentation, and like everything else in recent events, none of this is new, but we're just highlighting it for everybody to see. So what I found in this particular article, just as a layman's term summarization, if you will, whatever, is that magic versus religion. A lot of times when you were hearing about different, and Flint Dibble talked about this too, if I'm not mistaken, on Danny Jones, and he talked about the Greek magical papyri having some magical spells that included, one of them being opium, and we have talked about the archaeological digs that my crew was, they did a great job standing up for that aspect of academia. And it's sort of in tandem with who our friend Stephen quoted from an archaeologist, and I can't remember his name. I'm so sorry. He's the one that was on Gnostic Informant, and he's found all the coins with the oldest writings and when things started to kind of turn based off of when they started writing stuff. Because at a certain point, the further back you go, they're not writing anything down because they haven't started yet. And so you'll see things throughout this article, and you guys can just type it in and you'll find it. And what it's going to do is it's going to just walk through some of the animals that are included in the PGM magical. Here we go. So like magical poppets, which can be considered belonging to the sphere of magic. Greek magical papyri have a special place among them because the number, structure, and detail of magical rituals that they include. So one thing that Cross Bible did talk about was the earlier traditions being verbal before we were writing stuff, obviously, and having that Dicameter. I need Marcel here to correct my language. I'm saying it wrong. The pentameter, the tempo, the metronome, if you will, of the icaras, if you will. Like if you're in South America doing ayahuasca, they have their own version of that. Let's see. Let's scroll through. An example. Oh, here we go. For example, a spell referring to magical ingredients, the PGM 247 through 262, titled the Invisibility Spell. I love this. It reminds me of Harry Potter. It was chosen as an example of its for its typical composition and form, but also in content. The spell begins with the title commentary of the mage. Tested spell for invisibility. The author uses the word tested to give the spell more believability, probability, in order to appeal to those who have doubts about its effectiveness. There's always going to be them, right? Then we can see a list of ingredients, the description, and steps needed to be taken in order to successfully perform the ritual. The next part of the spell is the invocation of Egyptian divine powers. Right, this is the predecessor to that golden era of pre-Christianity that we like to focus on, and we don't really dive into Egypt a whole lot. And in which performers supposedly appeal to the gods, the daemons, or to secure their favor. Within the invocation section, we can find the voces magicae. Forgive me for not saying it correctly. I'm not. Obscure words seemingly without meaning. Some of them may have been the names of daemons or lesser gods that we're not familiar with today. Sorry. Or the obscure character of the words of the magical atmosphere of the spell. The performer is also supposed to say his name, I and N, where N should be substituted for the name to avoid some possible confusion. Here we go. Let's see if I got my dog here. Hey, what's up, dude?
Yo.
What's been going on in your world of magosry? That is funny.
Not much, man. I've just been playing a bunch of video games lately.
Can you turn your mic up?
Oh,
I can turn my volume up. Let me make sure I have. I could also not have mine up too. No, I got mine all the way.
This one might be better. Or hold on.
Hey, what's up? There he is. Yeah, he's going on in a little bit. So we weren't planning on it. We just jumped in, and I said it's a perfect excuse to jump in and just kind of see. Sometimes these end up being the better episodes when you just kind of, and I know that you and Neil have probably done it like, hey, let's go live, jump on right now. And then you get the best thing out of it, I think, And then sometimes you'll plan it. You'll have an itinerary. You'll have all this stuff.
Here we go.
And it doesn't align right, All right, say something, bro.
Hey.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
So you've been playing video games, some new or old ones, you said, right?
Yeah, I'm playing an RPG from 2001 or so. I bought it. It's like one of the first games I ever bought with my own money. But back then, like when at EB Games or whatever, or any video game store back then, you could like trade in 3 games and get one of the newer games that just came out for free. So I was constantly trading my games in to get the newest one, right? So I didn't finish it. I traded it in before.
Real quick, you did a video on ancient music. What's the word I'm trying to? I said it wrong a minute ago, and I was like, I need Marcel. Dicameter. Yeah. What's the
word for?
Look at the screen. It's like the metronome.
What's it? Metronome. A metronome is what like does a little click thing. You keep the.
I was talking about either the pentameter or the what's it called? The beat of saying the spell.
It's just a meter. Like there's iambic pentameter, which is like the way the poetry's read. There's pentameter, and then there's I can't remember the names of all of them now. I have them all down somewhere.
I was like, what's it called? I've never used the word. But I remember you did a video on it, so that's what I was referring to. So I skewed you. I was wrong.
Hexameter, iambic hexameter, which is what the Orphic hymns are in. Pentameter is what like Shakespeare is read in, and that's like how many syllables are in each line, I think. So like hexameter would have 6 syllables a line, and pentameter would have there's short and long syllables. So like they're divided like a straight line, like a dash is a a short syllable, and then a hump, like a upside down U, is a long syllable. Or maybe it's the other way around. Either way, one of those is short, one of those is long, and they're used in different patterns to have different, like one's more like a march style of reading, another one they change. I haven't looked at that stuff in a while now. I didn't memorize it all, so I can't really pull it up out of my brain right now.
So real quick, because
Yeah.
academia and like the article I was just reading, for example, there is another, just for the situational awareness, guys, there is another S Black out there that has written tons of and contributed to tons of stuff. It is not me. This particular person would absolutely be an American black male based off of what's being written in the articles. I think that'd be pretty obvious. It's completely off the topic of what we talk about, but I constantly get these emails saying, "Are you this S. Blackman cited in this research article?" And I'm like, no. Never will I be cited.
It's crazy. I get so many of them. So many of them.
Homer is in
dactylic. Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't say the word. I didn't know what the heck the word was, and I was in the right
yeah, I said hexameter, but I couldn't remember the first word. And there's a try one as well, and there's one that starts with an E as well.
Right. For the different count.
There's one that starts with an E that's used for eulogies, and the thing I wrote was alluded to how I think dactylic and trichaic and hex or hexameter and pentameter can hide the one that starts with an E in it. I can't remember what it is now. I have to look it up.
Here's my mama that gave me that name. And so J Frog said, Stephen Michael Blackman sounds like a vampire villain. It sounds like a Jonathan Taylor Thomas name for a white kid with a bowl cut in some 90s show. That's totally the direction I wanted to go in life, but my parents, I think, saved me from the vampires in Hollywood and never let me. I think I was probably too autistic and too dumb to actually get being an actor. So we stuck with art when I was in elementary school and middle school at the School of the Arts. So that was my focus. And luckily, because art is just a rendition, it can be so wrong and it's not wrong. So it kind of worked for me because it didn't matter how good my stuff was. It was still, but anyway, how's GMA? How's GMA? Anyway, so you've been anything else going on in the world? I saw Dr. Till has been doing episodes and he put up a video on them taking down his stuff. I'm sure he's pretty pissed that like it's not the same audience because that other channel's gone now,
Yeah, we're gonna try and get it back in a couple weeks, I think. Well,
I wish we could, if there is a way. Yes, I do. Has a PhD in finger painting. Yes, I do. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what's funny is that the only thing I can contribute here is just showing people artwork. I can't tell you what they meant unless there's a description.
Yeah, never mind.
Yeah. What are you saying?
Never mind. I got something to tell you later. I'll tell you after the.
Okay, cool.
After we go live, yeah, I don't want to bring it up now.
Yeah, this room was made into a nursery, and it probably will again in some capacity. So, the people that owned this house before put that in. It's pretty cool. I'm not cool enough to put something like this in my, in my thing. Marcel, we lost him. We must have had a technical difficulty, and Mandy Moorhall, I know you're probably at work right now, but I did send you the link if you jump in. All right, so while Marcel's figuring out his connection, if you need to, bro, back out, come back in. All right.
Yeah, I'm just figuring out some stuff here. Just give me a second. I
wanted to find, there was a clip from a video that our dudes at Gnostic Informant were putting up, and I want to pull it up because it was really good. But it took us a little while to get going last live, and then by the time Steve got on, we were like an hour in. And then it got great. I almost could like chop that little bit, but we do talk about other stuff. Some days, all of our cylinders are firing, and I think everybody that's done lives, and then Steven's doing his first one later today. I think a lot of people that do lives you kind of find the flow and the way to really get into the mentality beforehand, you know, and the spur of the moment ones that we've done in the past, bro, they were always, you know, so much better. I don't know how to describe it, but seems like everybody was on the same wavelength and really just boom, 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 boom. All the information was new on the channel. But now we've been here for a minute, you know, and I'm not really trying to grow the channel. So it's like, you know, this has just become like a hangout in a way. It's like I'm not really trying to grow it, but you know,
we'll figure something out, man. Like it just takes something.
It could start growing again. I think what's happened though is I've lost, you know, like just 20 people or so.
Anything for a few weeks or a couple of months, right? So
some people that follow this kind of material don't like the fact that Gnostic and Cross Bible have come on. And then
yeah, which is fucking stupid. Like,
well, I would love to bring Amon Hillman on as a special guest, but I don't know if he really liking me a whole lot because I became friends with them. So it's kind of like, well, I'll leave him alone, let him do his thing. But yeah, bro, Chewy, if you're watching this, or if you know, if all the minions that are recording this live right now to make videos fucking later, if y'all want to shoot this over to him, I'd totally bring him on. But I don't think he's going. So.
No, yeah, it's I don't know. He's got a protective force field around the Falcon for sure, right? Like,
it's controlled for sure. It's not like it's wide open, and it's not as, I would say, transparent as some channels can be. Because of the way that you have to teach this material, he's doing it the right way.
He's trying to protect his wherewithal too, like just the it's just keeping extra tight security just in case it's needed.
So you were telling me Amon was mentioned on Joe Rogan.
Yeah, because Danny Jones is on there, and that's fucking amazing because if Amon gets on Rogan or whatever, that'll be the perfect dojo for Amon, really, because it gets his work out in front of so many people. It's gonna have more people scrutinize it or praise it or whatnot, right? It's gonna get Amon's info to such a wide audience that it's either gonna make it or break it, right?
Well, so the question is, has Joe Rogan now gone back and watched all of that material? How much has he pushed back on it? How much has he not?
Yeah.
Has he?
I'm sure James. Sorry, I'm sure Jamie's watching it, and Amon's watching a bit, or Amon, fucking Rogan's watching a bit too. I think Rogan really like Amon's work, actually.
Yeah, you know, so I'm looking for a particular part in Gnostic's last live, or one of his last live streams, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to actually find that while we are here for the short amount of time, because it's a specific part in here. Now, what it is, I'll be transparent on what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the part where Gnostic and Steve, or you could say Steve was looking at something and Gnostic was commenting. And one of the things, and this is, and I'm not in any way trying to twist anybody's stuff into making it fit, but let me just, so after writing the book, as y'all know, or as you know, bro, I wrote the book and then I made the YouTube to continue the research for this and to try to get in touch with the actual people I'm citing in here, which has happened, right? And so it all worked. The problem is I was trying to find the information that contested Amon's theories on certain things. And one of the things that has gotten the biggest pushback was the concept of having intimacy with the followers, the disciples. Now, for a while, this has been pushed back on heavily to take that word that starts with a P out of the whole conversation, considering things were different back then. Achilles and Patroclus, that kind of relationship with one of the disciples or Mary was the question at hand in the last episode. One of the questions that they were talking about. So the disciple or the apostle that Jesus loved, that person, that's a mystery. And then there's theories. It's Mary, okay? And then they just don't really tell you about more of that. And then there's another theory. Hold on. Your mic's real sensitive, so I just muted it for right now. And then there's another theory that it would be John the boy. And then there was another theory they may or may not have even said, but I'll throw it out there if I'm inputting this with dyslexia. But if then it would be Peter, like the older one. So when we talk about that scene when he gets arrested, that everybody's sick of hearing about, the concept that they were having any kind of intimacies has been scoffed at heavily. But then the other night, I was hearing something along the lines of that there would be intimacies with these, whether it be the initiates, the disciples, or you had to work your way up to being that close with them, or if it was just the female that's constantly mentioned in the book being Mary, which I could definitely go with that to not make him the other version of this that people don't want to, whatever. Now, mind you, I've already said Marx plagiarized from Homer, and I'm sure that could be reversed and argued against or whatever. So that none of these stories have any real semblance, have any real relevance or anything, but it's just representing the things that were happening of the time with any of that rebellion or any of the practice that was surrounding those people that just happened to be in the rebellion. It wasn't like he wouldn't have been the only person that was having intimacies with their juniors, if you will, the people under their wing. He wouldn't be the only one in history doing that. So I never thought it was far-fetched, but it got not from them, but the world of academia threw the kitchen sink at the idea of having any kind of intercourse with the initiates or with the disciples or the apostles. And that word that word that starts with a P that's all over the news right now, that word being used to describe it has been attacked a lot because it's negative the way that they're using it and stuff. Obviously they're kind of trying to separate the time that it's from and have modern morals to justify why things weren't happening back then when they were, happening all the time. Like naked ceremonies were very common. It wasn't to be any kind of way, really, even though there could have been sort of a transmetaphysical reason for the nudity in addition to just being pure with no clothes on. Sure, there could be an additional sexual energy attached to that as well. I mean, after all, you're going to see the people naked, so I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter how far back we go in time, these naked women guys like to look at, and vice versa, right? So I don't know. It just makes me wonder sometimes just how much of academia is disagreeing with it. If piece by piece, we're seeing all the stuff that was pushed against, maybe not by our boys that made the video, but I'm just saying, just everyone else. I'll just throw names out there. Dr. Karitko, Dr. Kip, What Your Pastor Didn't Tell You, the little Neoniskos. Whatever it is, people are pushing against this really hard to support the way that Christianity is viewed today, which I think is academically ignorant. And look, I'm the dumb autistic art kid here. I don't get to say that I'm smarter than anybody else, but what are the chances that is exactly what was happening back then? And we're going to have to do this Trump style denial to really skirt around these files that we're all finding and these stories and stuff, not to be aggressive about it, but typically we got 16 people on the screen and it's kind of hard to keep a thought thread going, if you will, So this is some of my thoughts on, and tell me what you think, Marcel, on the concept of that being acknowledged the other night. It would, I was surprised to hear that because that was something that was being pushed against really hard. Now, granted, it could have been Mary, but that's just as blasphemous, to say John the boy, or the Neoniskos in the garden or whatever.
I didn't see that part. I don't think. Maybe. Oh, I was watching it while I was falling asleep, so I don't remember what I saw at all. To be honest with you, but
I was watching it the other day on the show, and they had just talked about that either before I went live or maybe even after we had started going live. But I don't think I was playing it when we went live. I think we just were all sitting there.
Yeah, I remember when they were talking about, they were like, there were there were early people in Christianity who were deified through gnosis besides Jesus. So like fuck, what's the dude's name? Pythagoras. So like Pythagoras was made like a god through gnosis or something like that. They were talking about something like that anyway, and there was like three people, and there was this like kid, Epim, or what was the kid's name? Epiphanes, maybe, if memory serves me correctly, who was also deified or also became a god through gnosis, and he was like the 17-year-old kid who like wrote a bunch of shit or something. I hope I don't know. I was watching him falling asleep, so that's all I can pull up from my memory anyway. I remember 17-year-old kid wrote a bunch of shit. His name was like Epiphanes or something. And
You're not trying to say Epiphanius, are you? Or are you trying to say a name that sounds like that, but it's slightly different?
I think it's Epiphane. I think it's like Epiphanius, but slightly different.
Okay, so I've heard Gnostic talk about who you're referring to. I just can't think of how to say it correctly. So Mandy Moorhall did mention here, and then Mandy's going to have to come on and talk a little bit more about the Book of Mark, because he's got this funny. I'm not laughing at it. When he tells the story, it's so funny when he talks about Mark, when he comes on, whenever, next time. Lucian uses the word neoniskos, and we're not going to do the whole neoniskos thing in detail today, obviously, but the word neoniskos in context of prostitution, he doesn't specify an age class at all, actually. So I do think that's kind of cool. So like, for example, I call you guys my boys.
Yeah.
Have a different, for sure. And Stephen from Cross Bibles talked about that too, how on our show last time, he talked about going to sleep and the Greek word for that, and then using that symbolically to talk about it being the transcendental death, and how that's a little flawed, because that was a very common way he went to sleep. Go to just like we use it now with boxing, like say goodnight, man. Oh, did you? Okay. I barely get on Discord anymore. I've just been so dang busy.
Send it to, or forward it to me so I can read it later or something.
Yeah, I can pull it up. Oh yeah, so I will say this, just because obviously there's a few musicians in the screen right now. Even though that's my wife's guitar, and that's my daughter's guitar, mine's in the room and stuff. But Ozzy Osbourne died. Now, this is the most random thing. I'm not trying to sound cool, but my dad, an author, a screenwriter, I told him, hey man, a long time ago, this was back like when I was living in his house while he was in Africa. I was like, yo, you need to write an Ozzy Osbourne script like the Freddie Mercury movie, Bohemian Rhapsody, because he's going to die soon. He can't live that much longer. I mean, this man's taken a lot of drugs, and then someone's going to make a movie about his life, similar to The Dirt with Motley Crue, or similar to Freddie Mercury's movie, or Elton John's movie, Rocket Man, and
I haven't seen Rocket Man.
It's good, it's very gay, but
that's
it's good.
Okay. Yeah. I can handle that.
Yeah. They don't really show much, but you might not want to let kids watch it just because of one scene when they're going around with their shirts off. Yeah. Let me just say this: that guy that plays Elton John plays a very convincing gay man. So I'm not trying to be funny or anything. He does a very good job of being Elton, for sure. But Elton kind of doesn't act like that, though. He doesn't really act like Freddie. Freddie was way more flamboyant than Elton. Even though Elton's costumes were way more flamboyant than how he acted. Freddie wore a biker shirt, but acted very flamboyant. It's different, a whole different direction, Yeah,
Elton looked like Freddie acted.
Yeah. And I mean, he's had some of the best guitarists, Randy Rhoads, Zakk Wylde. Zakk Wylde, everybody knows.
Yeah.
He was one of the guitar players in the movie Rockstar, but he didn't have a beard. So if you go back and watch the movie Rockstar, it's actually Zakk Wylde as one of the guitar players. He just has no beard, but he has obviously the 80s hair and
he didn't have a beard for the first while. All of Zakk Wylde's like first instructional guitar videos from like the early 90s or whatnot, he's clean shaven.
Oh yeah. When he was young, like I think he won some competition on the Howard Stern show and got the chance to audition for Ozzy from that. And then after that, he went off, made Black Label Society, which was very Ozzy-esque. You know, it's the biker dudes. It's the biker dudes. You know.
I like a few Black Label Society songs. They're pretty good.
Oh, they were trying to make him look like Randy. I could totally see that. And I remember when he talked about when he came on, he was like, okay, every guitarist has the thing that they're known for, you know, a certain style, certain technique that they've mastered and that they've expanded on. You know, Stevie Vai, you can hear him playing, you know, that's Stevie Vai. Even in the middle of a Polyphia song, you're like, yeah, that's Stevie Vai. You can tell. You can tell it's a freaking 77p Gem like mine. You know, you can everything. You can tell. And you can tell when Randy Rhoads is playing, and you can tell when Zakk Wylde's playing. Like they all have their own styles and the things that they really kind of, you know. I think everyone knows that like Van Halen, like Eddie Van Halen, he's kind of the finger picking. He's the first song you learn how to do that with. You know what I mean? Whatever. But what is this? Stoic twink? Isn't twink like a word for like a gay dude? Twinks up?
Yeah, there's a few. Yeah, there's a few. I'm pretty sure that's the gay connotation he's trying to put across there. But there's a few meanings for the word.
Save yourself, bro. Change your name. You have a picture of a freaking guy. No, not like that. Yahuwah cries over. Let's see what we got here. A skewed Jew he's always been here. Let's see what he has to say. Yahuwah cries over Lazarus and cuddles him in his bosom. Basically understood he was playing like Michael Jackson. You know, I think there's something really interesting here. I can't exactly tell what you're trying to say.
He's alluding to the fact that Michael Jackson was accused of things, so now he's accusing Jesus of the same thing.
Yahuwah cries over Lazarus.
He's saying that him. He's saying that Lazarus and Yeshua are playing like Michael Jackson played with Macaulay Culkin. Now I don't know if he's.
Well, I will say this. There's a lot of similarities with the analogies people try to make. You know, for this, it depends how. You know, it just depends how far they want to go. They want to push the ages to the lowest rung, and they want to push the activities to the highest level. And you know, that I think does deserve the recalibration or the check your azimuth real quick. You know, just make sure it's not too far out there. But what I did do is I recently found a couple of the passages that we had asked Steve about from Cross Bible. And one of I did the video on Matthew 12, 1 through 8, but Luke 6, which is posted on the posts on the page, Luke 6 talks about them rolling it in their hands, the wheat, and eating it before going to the temple.
Rolling what in their hands?
The stalks of grain.
Oh. Okay.
The stachios, Steve can say it, but I can't. Whatever word that was. So we did bring up those passages, and we looked at concept of that being referred to for corn nowadays. And then someone said in the comments, "Well, we didn't really have corn brought over yet, you know, by that year," which reminded me of a quote from the book *Sapiens*. There's a book called *Sapiens*, and it's just an anthropology book. So naturally, I'm going to own it, right? Well, I stole my dad's copy and read it. And it was, they talk about tomatoes not being in Italy. Italian food didn't have any tomatoes until after Columbus. So for 1,500 years.
There's a hieroglyph on some Egyptian thing that has modern corn on it.
Say again?
there's a hieroglyph. There's like a drawing in like some Egyptian palace or something. I was watching a video. There was another video that was on while I fall asleep because I queue up like a bunch of ancient history shit. But there's a palace or there's an Egyptian hieroglyph story somewhere. I'm pretty sure it's in Egypt, and it has a picture of modern corn in it, like modern day corn, long before corn was ever supposed to be brought over there.
Oh shit! I like that. I like when they do that and they find out that something's been there way longer. It seems like we've been doing that with a lot of
I have
things, even
to. I have
civilizations.
to find it right now because it's going to drive me that I can't remember that. Hold on.
So right here, I have a friend of mine. We're actually buddies at the gym, Jesse Iglesias. He was talking about some different experiences. I was talking to him personally, and he has a comment here and say, yeah, if you're going to say something like Jesus and Lazarus were like Michael Jackson and those kids, at least provide some scripture. Now, it's not so much the Mark 14:51 scripture that kai nieniskos te sunikuluthi peribibaminos and dona epikuno kai kratasenantun. I don't, I'm probably saying a few of those words wrong. That particular phrase is just talking about a young man being naked, going through a ceremony with a purple sindon or sindona over him, which is the ceremonial cloth of some sort. You see it in tons of artwork. And it's not there's a crazier theory that they were doing a castration ceremony in the garden, but there is nothing about a castration or a direct reference to a bandage being around his nuts. So more than likely, it's kind of like that the pictures of David with the big purple, cloth on. And, I wear this purple robe, but this is just sort of making the joke on. And so is that the only verse you've memorized? Yeah, pretty much. But what I was going to say is it's not so much here. It's more so. Let me pull this up real quick. It's not the garden arrest scene.
Oh, damn it. Why can't I type in the chat?
It's from Matthew 19. And it's the same passages that have to talk about eunuchs and people becoming eunuchs for the kingdom of the heavens. And so a little ways down, if I'm not mistaken, or it's earlier. No, it's further down. And I'm just gonna. It doesn't matter what version I really use right now, but I'm going to crossbible.com real quick. Let's see. Go to Matthew 19. So in that artistic symbolism way of trying to interpret this Greek written by religious officials, which arguably wouldn't have the same symbolism as artists or maybe Greek poets from a Dionysian type of era, that would perhaps you could interpret poetry the way that, Dr. Rahman or the Babylonian followers that I call it, the Ammonites, whatever you want to call them, that they refer to this, very sexual stuff. But what they're referring to when they're talking about him and the kids, like the backhanded little secret scene in The Big Lebowski about the Jesus and the pedophilia and serving 6 months in Chino and them, making a big 4-minute monologue about this character that has no relevance in the movie. Well, Ethan Cohen, a philosophy major, has heard this theory that Jesus was inappropriately giving entheogens and having sexual interactions with these kids, and symbolically they're saying that it's hidden in the scripture, but very, very lightly. So for example, let's see, go up, where are the kids? And then I'll pull it up here. Okay, just 12 last man, first and last one. Where's the kids? First, and then long full flesh one, Jesus will divorce his wife, disciples saying, not you want to kiss up this word, but eunuchs in love. Okay, here we go. So it's Matt. So right after the eunuchs, here we go. I'll bring you here. Add to stage. Here we go. All right, sorry. It's all been jacked up this whole time. All right, so here we have Cross Bible. I just pulled up the NIV because it was the one that was there when I clicked on the thing. So we have this Matthew 19:12, and for there are eunuchs who were born that way, and there are eunuchs who have been made eunuchs by others, and there have been eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. The one who can accept this should accept it. The next line, then the people then brought little children to Jesus for him to place his hands on them and to pray for them, but the disciples rebuked it. Now, the reason why this is an inappropriate, or the reason why people are saying that this is alluding to inappropriate things today with children and entheogens, all has to do with the concept of these being entheogens that you give to people through different orifices and absorbing it, and oils, and there being a level of nakedness to these ceremonies and blessing the children and things like that. So if you are an atheist or non-Christian philosophy major, you will dub Jesus as a pedophile and put him in your movie, The Big Lebowski, as a contemporary Spanish-styled cocaine fingernail, crown of thorns hairnet, Tyrian purple outfit, knocking down the bowling pins, being the best at what he does, but he's a pervert. He spent 6 months in Chino for exposing himself to an 8-year-old. Now, this particular passage is what that's actually referring to, not the garden scene. So I did want to say that it's not that scene that specifically is drawing that red thread to that P word that we don't like to say. It's all the other scriptures where he's blessing children and doing things to them, right? And now that wasn't necessarily a creation in my brain. This was something that was in Dr. Hillman's Babylon channel that I had been like, oh, wow, I'd never really thought about that. And then I thought about the Big Lebowski scene, and it was like, okay. I looked up what Ethan Cohen's major was, and he's a philosophy major. So they're going to be learning all the Greek. So what my theory is that this theory has been around for a while. If you look at some of the artwork that exists, having this Dionysian transcendental gender transitioning with his spear to the ribs, and the castration, supposedly, in the Manisaros, claiming he had an erection and that he had a castration, and that this was the ultimate feminine transformation into the other side by giving him the vaginal wound in the rib cage. Very, very artsy kind of philosophy there, for sure. But it's been around for a while. That's what I didn't know. That's the big thing that I found out from even starting with this stuff, was that, oh, this has been around for a minute. And then you learn a little bit more about Michelangelo's symbolism that he hides around the Sibylline oracles, and just the whole thing is riddled with a story. A picture worth 1,000 words. There's a lot more for, artists that weren't fans of the religions, for whatever reasons. I mean, I would think that it's probably fair to say that a lot of progressive arts, if you will, don't love clergy, if you will. So, but this is all just speculation. My mom being an anthropology major, I can't really help the fact that I had heard about these magical plants when I was a kid. Just didn't really, we're a military family, so it's not like we're doing any of them. It's just, we heard about them, we got books on them, and the further back you go, there are, Achilles, Patroclus type relationships and stuff. Now, was that Mary? That would really piss off Christians. And if it was any of the disciples, that would also piss off Christians today. But it wouldn't make a Christian in 100 AD mad, I don't think. If we look at the artwork from 100 AD and we see all these magic wands that, like we were talking with Cross Bible, we say, well, none of this is in the Bible either. But the whole catacombs of Priscilla are covered with women and Jesus with a magic wand. And I was like, I'm not, that had to be a symbolism for, potion making and giving that to people, and the whole ceremony itself and everything. I feel like it's very out there and in the open. And I feel like a lot of people from academia are starting to sort of accept it. Now, there may still be some absurd things that might be on the other channels. There might be some stuff that's just dead wrong. But there might, 10, 15, 20, whoever the person is we're talking about. There's 10, 12, 15 people that we're referring to when we talk about the religious YouTube sphere. I think a lot of people are right about a lot of things they say. It's the fact that they haven't come together and found the middle ground. Like when I said that the way that the Old Testament was written was more of a layering depending on the scribes, I got scoffed at. That's ridiculous. Oh my God, the whole thing. And then I discovered Cross Bible's timeline, and it's saying what I'm trying to say, but in a much more professional layout. So, real quick, what we'll do, since we're at 45 minutes, I think Chase and TigerShark are just busy today. You know, they're doing stuff, and that's, you know, everybody needs a break here and there from this shit. We're at 45 minutes. We'll probably cut it off here soon. Steve's going on at 12. Well, this is Central Time, but 12 my time. So he's going on in about 40 minutes or so. So I did want to just let everybody know that he was going live. This is his first live. Everybody, when you go to his comments, don't go and shit all in his comments and ruin the thing, because then you have to spend more time policing the comments and you can't get into the good stuff, or you got to ignore it all the way. But don't show up and just start shitting all over him, because there's a lot of things Steve actually agreed with that we all talk about, or he could see the potential for that. You know, not like he's gonna. It seems to have a very realistic approach to this while maintaining, you know, Christianity, you know, also. So I liked that. And I think this might be one of the middle ground. Doesn't mean anything. Okay. So anyway, yeah. So having a place where people come from other channels and maybe talk about something. We've been doing it. It's been picking up some, and you know, like I said, I'm not really trying to grow the channel, but I don't want to give it up either, because everybody else wants it, you know, to still be here. There will be something that happens in that world where people are going to want to talk about it here, I guess, you know. So okay, bro. Yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and cut everybody free. Let's see what we got here. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna click on a few comments before we go, just because anyone arguing that Jesus wasn't a PDF was a burden of proof to demonstrate that Jesus was an exceptional individual at the time who did not participate in that behavior. What else we got? Anything? Our capital in DC is covered in maize, corn, God imagery. Interesting that the government pays people to grow corn. You know, I lived in DC for a little bit. You know, maybe I didn't see everything as much as others do. They do have a lot of symbolism. One thing I'll touch on before we go then, since this is great. Let's go to this. Let's just go to my channel real quick, though. I wanted to show everybody, this is, we've talked about this before too, posts. Now, I would love to talk to Stephen more about this Leroy dance, Ballet de la Nuit. Red Souls, the grain, great topic for the next live on artistic symbolism. So if y'all go to my posts, you will see these red souls on the shoes, these golden shoes here. Let me show it. Sorry. Boom. There we go. So if you guys want to check out this video, it looks like a great movie. I've never even watched the movie, but I've seen this scene a couple of times. Sorry, here we go. I've seen this scene looking for different wheat symbolism or just any symbolisms and stuff or whatnot. Now, I'll be honest with you. The big thing that caught my attention with this was the fact that in Revelation, the way that they kind of portray Jesus, there's some stuff here that can actually work, such as the golden breastplate, golden belt around the mastoi. That can easily, this golden breastplate right here, even though this isn't Jesus, guys, this isn't Jesus in Revelation, but this here can represent exactly what was trying to be said in Revelation. Now, remember, we do have this very progressive way of viewing this gender transformation in this transcendental experience for Mr. Jesus. There's just not enough in John, the John from the Apocalypse. There's just not enough there to say that, but I did think it was interesting. And I do think that I saw that in a vision a long time ago because I was going to learn about the transformation Jesus. Not saying that that's actually what's there. I'm just saying I was going to learn about it. So I saw it in a vision one time. And then later on, I learned about it. I don't think it had anything to do with predicting the past or anything like that, or not predicting, but revealing something from the past. I don't think it was really like that. Guys, real quick, head on over to Lord Cameron. Reverend Young Harmonic. He's going live now. If you guys want to go hang out over there until Cross Bible jumps on for his live, I'm going to try to be in the comments. If they show, sometimes YouTube's kind of funny, you know. Oh, shit. You're just in time. What's up, dude?
Are you guys leaving?
Well, in a little bit, but since you're here, we'll stay on for 10 more minutes or so. We talked about the concept of the beloved apostle, disciple, being either Mary or one of the disciples, and how we were a little bit taken back by that because it wasn't necessarily Gnostic and Stephen, but like Myth Vision and Dr. Kip pushed back on the whole intimacy with your followers thing, like the Achilles Patroclus relationship. That was pushed back on so hard with Jesus. I didn't think it was that crazy, just given the time. And then finally, some friends of ours said that on a different show. And I was like, okay, great. So like, it's not too crazy to think that there was, stuff like that going on. I mean, if it was normal, nobody wants to talk about it, but it's an I got you moment, I guess, for, for whatever. You cut your hair.
Yeah, I had it long for my son. Just, he's got long hair. He's 4. So I didn't want to, I tried to make him feel like he was normal, with long hair. But anyway, yeah, I think once you start reading this stuff from the drug lens, it's very in your face in the Old Testament and the New Testament, but people have to look for keywords. We know that guys like Myth Vision, Gnostic, and others, they're not looking at it through the lens like you, Marcel, Amen, others, Chase, us, right? But it's there. It's all there. And if you don't read it from that context, none of it makes sense. If you read the Bible, it's just, you ask Wes Huff, you ask Kip Davis, it's all this, everything's a metaphor and everything's up for interpretation. Not really, because like Amen says, the words have a meaning. And then people say, well, he's using the definition that's, the sixth definition of it, not the first one or whatever, right?
Right.
But you have to do that because these words have meaning. And some of the words that you can do, like I'll read some here from the Bible. This is from the version you want, and go back to the Hebrew and look what the word for the Hebrew word means. Genesis 2:7 talks about, and Amen brought this up about Genesis in his last show, about it being the creation story. And it's a theogony, but it's also cosmogony, which is the creation of the universe and the earth and all of these things, right? Their creation mythos. Every single culture has a creation mythos, not just the Greek. Every single one does. We have it in art depictions and cultures that didn't write text. And that was just their version of it. But that version of it gets found all over the Old Testament and the New Testament. There's 2 books. You guys can go look them up. It's called Astronomy in the Old Testament and Astrology in the Old Testament. And most of that comes from 3 different cultures. So this whole argument of them being first and all stuff, it's not their concepts. Even the concept of the Logos, which we all know, John 1:1, that's from Heraclitus, and even before him, Xenophon's. We know that this is the case. So people like Gnostic and Foreman going, well, I find it hard to believe, and it's all Hellenistic. No, it's not. A lot of these concepts are older than the Hellenistic period, such as the Logos, and that's found in the New Testament. So, but anyways, let's read it from the drug context, because I want people to be on the same page and not, well, he's just reading it in a weird way. So 1 Samuel 14:27 is quite interesting. It reads, but Jonathan heard not when his father charged the people with the oath, wherefore he put forth the end of the rod. So if you look up the key word for the rod, it tells you a lot of shit that was going on in the Bible with the 12 tribes of Israel. Well, let's just continue on this verse. The rod that was in his hand, and dipped it in honeycomb, and put his hand in his mouth, and his eyes were enlightened. Okay, if that's not enough to tell you that they were doing some, just honey, and it's just a weird metaphor. No. Why? Because now we can go to Numbers. Let's go to Numbers and look up the keyword rod, and we'll see why this is important. It's all throughout here. Numbers chapter 17 literally says that each house of the 12 tribes of Israel gets a rod, one rod for each tribe. And what are they doing with that rod? 1 Samuel. They're anointing each other with it to get enlightened. They're talking about enlightenment with the rod. Genesis 2:7. I'm not going to pull it up here, but essentially it's the one that Ahmed brought up, and my own conjecture is thus: they are breathing, they are taking dust and breathing it into the nostril. Okay. To me, that is DMT. That is a DMT snuff that they're doing, and that's the same thing that we see in Peru.
Yep, and they blow it through a little pipe up Dr. Guilty's nose.
Exactly.
Pictures I got.
Jesus came back. Jesus went and got educated. He could read and write. If you look at the times population, 3% of the population could could read and write during the time of first century in that area.
Mm-hmm.
He was educated
to learn that, and even
he went to Egypt. He came back and he said, "I'm doing my own shit," and they were like, "No, you can't, because we have our rules." Numbers chapter 17. Each house, like the house of Levi, they all get a rod. You don't have a rod, Jesus. Well, he picked up his own rod. That's his whole crop. The art depictions that we find, and people say, "Wow, that was just from the 1200, CE era." No, it's not. It goes all the way back to the 3rd century, where they're finding with Dr. Brown, Wasson, and Allegro. Jesus, you know what the cross is? People don't even know what the cross is. It's an upside down tool to forage mushrooms. And there's art depictions of Jesus doing it. He's using it as a foraging tool with an inverted cross in a field of mushrooms in church artwork.
So the artwork, even the Om, the Egyptians are shoving that in each other's mouths, but keep on going.
But it's all throughout here, and what Ahmed is saying is absolutely correct. And you have to look at it from this lens. And it's not, now this is where I depart from all the Greek stuff. I like the Greek stuff, and you guys know that. But who's talking about the late Pleistocene era of shamanism? We're talking 12,500 years ago. And where do we find that? Lala Dosa and the Colombian Amazon. And what are they finding there in that artwork? This is all peer-reviewed literature, my friend. This is all out there on the planet. The last paper I have from 2016, they're finding animalistic human hybrids that are found in these shamanic senses that are depicted on the art. Right. And guess what they were doing? Their own gods have DMT snuff. They're taking it to reach the thunder god. And this is late Pleistocene.
Put a lot more, or they put just as much of the entheogens in the South America. I lived in Panama for 3 years, so there's been a lot of that in my house, my mom's house growing up. A lot of different South American, Central American artwork. They put the drugs all over the stuff, but it was also much later too. Let me back up. Some of the artwork that I have is a little bit later. That's
so the if we think about it, the Amazon is the lungs of the planet. Of course, they're going to have a lot more plants at their fingertips, and most of those are hallucinogens and stimulants. And we know this. We know that that's the fact. It's not even a contest. So if you guys are interested in the Greek stuff, wait till you start reading the Mayan stuff. The Mayan Codex, the Dresden in particular, they had a calendar that was more accurate than anything from the West. They tracked Venus and other planets, and it actually was an artificial intelligence that the CIA and the FBI teamed up to crack so they could read it and then extend and finish what they found in the art description of that calendar. And they themselves described it as an AI system that could be used in the future to track the motion of the planet, sidereal time. But this is one thing I wanted to read from this paper. It's Robinson et al. 2024 Journal of Anthropology and Archaeology. Tapir was a god in the Colombian Amazon, and they say is sometimes equated with thunder, a powerful being who lives in the sky. In several myths, the first Dasana take narcotic snuff and visit thunder by climbing up the sky on a column of tobacco smoke. This is late Pleistocene. So when Amun says that, linear B and stuff like that, that goes back further back, but what is it, like 3,000 years, 3,000 BCE or something of that nature.
Linear B is like him time frame.
This goes way further back, and I'm not saying that this is better. This is Colombian Amazon.
Okay.
So I'm not saying this is better. Most people, whatever, get caught up in that stupid crap. But what I'm saying is that once you start looking at this and looking at cultures all across the planet and what they're doing, it all leads to the same thing, my friend, and that's the mystery. They're trying to have these mythology to explain what's going on. Some of them end in teleology, some of them end in religiosity, some of them end in just what we do, which is like the mystery. We're purveyors of maintaining the mystery, that we don't know what's there. We know there's something, but we don't really put a finger on it.
The mystery is the mystery.
My friend here's wife is actually
the mystery is the mystery. That's what
right.
That's what people are getting. The mystery is the mystery. You're like you get what I'm saying though? Like,
and then once
people are trying to solve it, yes. There's a lot of people
solve the mystery. The mystery is interacting with the mystery. What is the mystery of reality, right? That's what the mystery is.
Yeah. And to put this into context, so if you guys, a lot of people say, the mystery 300,000 years old,
older than fire. That's for sure.
It's even older than that. And I would say, once you guys start looking into where language came from the scientific literature, there's different schools. And that theory that Terence McKenna had, the stoned ape theory, once you dig into where and why he came up with that theory, you'll be surprised. And I was like, wow, I didn't know he did a lot of research on this. He did. And he tied it together with syntax. With the mushroom being a catalyst to creating language. And that is one hypothesis that is accepted in the field, and there's different camps, and there's definitely scholars in that camp. Not just him. It's not a rogue fringe idea, actually. And with that, it's a visual context. But I think that all of these different medicines, cults, rituals, whatever you want to say, are leading to a similar place. But it starts to get weird when you start having all this Christian and all that. Obviously, we're all fighting against that. But
so what I have done, not to cut you off, is
go ahead.
I'm just trying to be, so I'm the descendant of a bunch of Freemasons, probably some Templars, just a little further back that we don't have the full, bloodline, whatever. But I am what do they call, the pig-eating, uncircumcised, dirty, rotten gringo white boys that are the descendants of people that were supposedly carrying the cross and blah, blah. And I'm just being funny, making a joke as if Jews call us that, or Muslims or whatever, but they don't eat pork either, but just being funny. And, I feel like I want to sort of stand up for Christianity a little bit today, because no one's apologizing for the 2,000 years of stuff that has my own personal friends, ancestors. Not only that, but I have had a relative or a direct family member in every freaking war since the beginning of time. So I am the lineage of everybody who did all that, Civil War, slave ships, all that is in my freaking ancestry. And I am transparently saying, I'm going to not make it right, but I'm going to be a platform where people who are Christians can accept the anthropological roots of the religion, and unfortunately, some of the realities to the trade of different centuries and different indigenous people suffering from that. And TigerShark can tell y'all more about North America, but South America is what I've studied. And in Terence McKenna's book, he does mention that when the white guys showed up with crosses, they enslaved everybody. And if you didn't work for them while they mined rubber, they cut the bottoms of your feet and your ass off. Now that sucks. I'm not apologizing for everybody that might have been in, but I think now your average grandma who is probably a Christian, they might be some very sweet people, and none of this stuff from the past is anything that they're proud of, for sure. Not that should be the main focus of my channel, but I do have friends who, are Christians, and, we have Stephen from Cross Bible on, we have Gnostic Informant on, we have all these different characters come here, or people, and I think we've been doing a pretty good job, and if we're ever wrong, just FYI to anybody watching us now, because we're going to sign off and get ready to watch Cross Bible and do adult things for the rest of the day. This was an impromptu. Is Chase here? Oh, he is. Boom. What up?
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Hello.
How's it going, man?
What are you doing?
Bouncing around. I was trying to get to a Wi-Fi.
Oh yeah, been working.
But I was I guess the one piece or angle I'm interested in bringing to, like, I think TigerShark's right on with all the archaeology, and like it just makes sense that they're all connected. But the question I really would think that is pretty important to the argument about the Hebrew not being influenced, or which came first, or all that, is, and maybe I have this wrong, so I want to ask you guys a few questions. Like, so with ancient Hebrew, it's true that there's like a very limited word count, vocabulary, structure, 7,000 unique words. That's right?
I think it's a little bit
Somewhere
more
around
than
there.
that, but
It's
Yeah.
8, 9, but I think that phrase has been coined, and I think there are more,
Real quick, what you guys were talking.
but we've lost
But it's
so
very
much
tiny.
of it because it was brand new. Like,
Okay.
everything was being written on clay tablets, and if they had to rewrite it, they would resurface.
Right.
And so
Right.
if that clay gets broken, and it, and so a
So-
lot of there might
and
be more.
Right, but there are
It's
no
very-
other records of any kind of story or texts or anything written in ancient Greek that are like the Bible, right? So, meaning like the majority of the ancient Greek that we find, like that they use to define it, the stories and stuff, is found only in the Bible. Is that correct?
You mean
What?
the Greek that
Yeah.
in the stuff that we're using is only from the Bible for the different points we're
Correct. Like, so meaning like when we say we have 8, 7, 8, 9, 10,000 unique words in Hebrew, that the majority of those words only appear in the Bible. They don't appear in other texts. There aren't
okay.
poetry,
There-
poetic. There aren't other stories, right?
That's what I mean. Yeah.
So
Okay.
that
I'm
could
just-
use some expansion. There are things like calendars, like the Giza calendar. It's one
No
of the
narrative
oldest-
structure.
Okay.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, for sure.
Well,
like narrative
there is
structure.
there is the Tanakh in the Talmud. So they wrote, all those rabbis basically wrote as well, and a lot of the drugs are actually in there. A lot of people don't
Yeah.
know this. There was a period where the Jews basically were talking about doing these substances, and this is in peer-reviewed literature already out there in the world. And I'm surprised that Gnostic and none of these people, but again, they're not looking for it. Amin says, you have to have eyes, but you also have to have a willingness to go look for this. Once you look for it, it's right
Gnostic
there.
Doesn't try to.
Yeah.
Does Gnostic not try to?
He's just now doing that, which I'm glad he's finally doing it.
Oh,
But when I was on his show,
I got
yeah, his last
I
show,
thought he was agreeing with a lot of that stuff, but maybe I'm the older.
not
stuff.
to the level that we talk about it, because he's just scratching the surface. When his show was like talking about Soma and all some of those actors, we know that in the archaeological record, dude.
Probably
All
trying
that
not
stuff.
to embarrass himself.
The
like,
bong,
as something
the
too much,
bong, the bongs that were coming over there from the old Silk Road, the one that wasn't controlled by the empires from Indo-Iran, the Rig Veda is only 1500 BCE, dude. That's not even that old. That whole religion from India that they brought up, that's not that old, dude. And they were already doing all this stuff. Yes, you see it in the Scythians. Yes, they had the same bongs. Yes, they were hotboxing. Yes, some of the Greeks made references to it.
That's something we could open up on here.
That's like barely scratching the surface type of stuff, and I'm glad he's doing that. But originally, early on, him and Myth Vision, no, it has nothing to do with drugs. This scholar says there's no drug use here. Oh, that lady's crazy. That Shula Bennett lady, yeah, she's nuts. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And they were saying that. And then when I went on his show and I made a comment, he disagreed with me when I said most of the myths are about the drugs. And I looked it up. I took a lot of time. I did the research on all the goddesses and gods. And there was only 2 out of like 200 that didn't go back to the Oracle at Delphi. Most of the myth, if you actually read them, this is how I know the people that don't even read them. They go, what are you talking about? Read it. Read the myth. It says that particular god was in cahoots with that god. And what did he do? Because he had a tragedy. He ran to the Oracle in Delphi. And what did she do? She gave him a prophecy. And how did she prophesy? They tell you how she prophesied. There's a bunch of other goddesses that, like one god was tears, and her tears turned into a psychoactive plant.
Right.
You know, the god Hypnos. The god of Hypnos has poppy lines aligned outside of his cave where he sleeps. So all these people saying that it has nothing to do with medicine, and that's not where, and even the one that I told you. So anybody that wants to disagree, and I'll drop this bombshell on Myth Vision, Gnostic, anybody, is this one. I'll read it right here. This is coming from our boy Plutarch. And if you guys want to argue with Plutarch, go ahead. But here, this is what he said. Let me see. I got to find it in my download.
About Plutarch from Gnostic show. I don't think it was Myth Vision. I think it was Gnostic. But I've also had him on the show, and he's mentioned some stuff. But go ahead. Do you think?
Well, he'll agree with this once he sees it. That's the reason why I like Gnostic.
This would be a great next live. What we're talking about now. We'll jump right back into it. And he said he wanted to come on again. He's just been busy. So
I want to
get the Tiger
real
Shark.
quick before.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before we go down I want to do the Plutarch thing. I just wanted to round out the framework that I'm asking those questions to kind of solidify. So the next question I have about the language, ancient Hebrew language, because I mean, is it accurate that when people are translating ancient Greek, or I'm sorry, ancient Hebrew, that those words seem to mean like 10 different things in various ways? That's accurate. Like if you're translating ancient Hebrew and it's like, well, this word could mean this, this, and this, and that's why we're able to translate into this dynamic Homeric thing, because these words all mean like 5 to 10 different things. Is that kind of how that language works?
100% true. And that's what I said in Genesis 2:7. If you read that word in, it's called naphtha or something like that, but it means dust. Okay. When they're breathing dust into the nostril and giving that life, look up the word for dust, of the dust of the ground. That word dust has several meanings. It could mean dirt, but it makes no sense in the dirt context here. Obviously, Christians, it's a metaphor. No, look it up. It means the definition in the Hebrew word itself for that particular phrase means mortar and powder. Mortar and powder. So they're taking powder from a mortar, they're blowing it into somebody's nostril, and they're breathing life into this person.
Yeah. Now, so think about now with all of just those pillars, and I think there's more. How is it possible for a language to contain all of that stuff uniquely and carry that specific narrative that they specifically say it says, when the language itself could mean all these different variations with a limited amount of words?
Yeah.
It's a choose your own adventure. If the language worked like that, if our language right now, if like the words I was using right now, each one of them could be broken off into 10 or 5 to 10 different variations. That's 5 or 10 to the power of 5 to the 10 to the 5 to the 10. Every time you add a word, there's all those different variations and combinations that could mean something. And you're telling me that the fairy tale version is the correct version at all these combinations of words, because apparently they can mean all these different things. And that this language was able to contain all of that stuff that is exactly dramatic, like Homeric, Greek and cult texts from all these other literatures outside of it, and stories that come from outside of it. And then you're saying, well, even if the texts themselves, like say we have 2 books on the table, and one of them can be dated to 1800 and the other one can be dated to 1700. And so it's like, well, the 1700 book came first. That still doesn't say anything about the influences of those stories in those books. So I could give credit to like, in a siloed position of if the text, if there's something that we have, like these are just the records we have right now, and we don't have everything, right? You could say like, well, this version of the Septuagint came after this version of the ancient Hebrew thing. I could say like, yeah, there's probably a trail line of that, or even so, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that you're telling me that this language with all those dynamics I just talked about somehow contains all of that stuff completely uninfluenced by all this other stuff that's like everywhere, like,
Oh
and it's all
no.
clearly all more orphic old texts. And
Well,
then you're
even
saying, well, before they spoke it, and that's how they carried it. How do you speak a language where your words mean 10 different things every time you combine them? Tell me how you speak and pass those stories on. It's
I
like, think about just the logic behind it. It does not, you can't, it's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. It doesn't make any sense. What makes sense is post hoc rationalization, like
Yeah.
Joseph Smith's golden tablets. Right there,
Yeah.
and even if they wrote it way back when they wrote the same time they were doing the Septuagint, or but that's what makes sense is like all these special ciphered simple symbols mean this giant dynamic thing of all these stories that we took from, and then they keep adding to it and taking from all the other myths and all the other gods they've inverted and collected. I don't know if that makes any sense, but for me, that's like it doesn't matter what we're dating the text back to. Like it's totally a non-starter for like the argument of that they have
Go
like the
read
original
the
story and this is the original story. It has nothing to do with all the other stuff. You know what I mean?
go read the letter
It's like in the
from the
physics.
early. Go read the letters from the early church fathers because they themselves disagree, and they go, I don't even think these guys read this shit. And I was asking like I know Myth Vision doesn't. Gnostic says he did, but it's kind of hard to comprehend when you're reading it. And I don't think many people understand it when they read it. But who was it? Africanus, the letter with Africanus, right?
yeah.
And basically they're going back and forth, but they're even triangulating from older versions of it. So the Theodorus one, they were like, oh yeah, but that one says this one and this one says that one. So we think it's this. Like they're confused. And we're talking like 3rd century. So they were confused early on, Chase. So your point is correct. They've always been confused, which is why you have how many different denominations, and it keeps growing every year, the number of denominations in the Christian circle, because they're all confused. They don't know what the hell is going on.
Well, I mean, they even have whole denominations based off of, like one single snake passage from Mark 16, so which I love watching videos of that. But hey, guys, this actually has become an awesome freaking podcast.
Let me do the Plutarch one, and then we'll.
I was gonna say hit that, and then I'm gonna jump off, and we're gonna come back on tomorrow if any of y'all free. So
all right. So if anybody wants to fight the drug context and the narrative, at least in the Greek mythos, right? Which they were still, and I believe they're still doing that. I have no idea. I don't watch these guys no more. But Plutarch and Moralia 438.51 says it himself. So you want to fight with him, go fight with him. He says, whenever then the imaginative and prophetic faculty is in a state of proper adjustment for attempering itself to the spirit as to a drug, inspiration in those who foretell the future is bound to come. So those that are attempering itself to the spirit as to a drug, inspiration in those foretell the future is bound to come. And whenever the conditions are not this, it is bound not to come. It's right there in your face. So anybody that wants to say that they were not doing these things and it has nothing to do with drugs and only a few people were doing them and it was a rogue little group of Greeks that did it.
Like these Christians here were doing it, but not this group, which I do think that there might have been differences, like I always make the joke that Jesus is really just a redneck from the country that he wasn't married, but he became a rabbi. That's against the rules. That just starting off, But what passage was that you said from Plutarch?
The passage is Moralia, Moralia 438.51. Plutarch himself says this. So if anybody wants to argue about Greeks going back to prophecy and not coming from the actual substances that they had, the medicine, you're going to have to contend against Plutarch. You're going to have to show sources that say, well, that's not true. And they say it here.
Go ahead.
But this is the other thing about the mystery. If you guys read, and I don't believe many people read this stuff, especially all these guys that are like, it's all about the fates. It's all about And I don't like fate anyway because I just like Zeus. Zeus hated fate. Why? Because he didn't feel like he was in control. Right? That was the myth. But here's the thing: the fates and the muse, they couldn't even. The Greeks couldn't even come to a conclusion on how many there were. In the beginning, there was 3. Then all of a sudden, there was 9. And that just goes back into what Chase is kind of talking about. There's really, in the Greek circle, they welcomed a lot of different traditions, right? They welcomed a lot of different stories. A lot of the goddesses and gods have different fucking stories based on the region that they're in because they tell stories differently. So I think if you look at it from that lens and you kind of apply it and overlay it on what the Hebrew people copied, because they didn't copy just Greek, they copied Chaldean, which is like Babylon area, right? They also copied the Egyptian for sure. The zodiac signs are in the fucking Bible, right? That wasn't theirs. They got that from different cultures. So if you're looking at the context, and that's what Amon's talking about, he's talking about the context. It's not about the actual written paragraphs or the actual written verses or whatever. It's the context that matters. And if they're writing about things that aren't culturally theirs, then anybody can. It's like you and I, Chase, we talked. It's like if the Chinese said, we're going to do sushi, just like the Japanese, but we're going to make our own little kink on it, and we're going to call it Chinese sushi. And if somebody came along and said, yeah, but the Japanese did it first, they wouldn't be wrong. And that's exactly what Amon's saying. It's not theirs. They didn't do it. Not a lot of that's not there. Now we can pinpoint, be more precise about what's not theirs. Yes, Amon looks at the medical medicine. Yeah. I also want to say this.
It works.
I also want to say this real quick. For guys that like to look stuff up, I know your chat has a lot of people that are looking up stuff right on their own.
Yeah.
Try to look for Galen and his teachers and look for the hallucinogenics. You don't find it. There are psychoactive compounds that Galen references, but they're like abortifacients and things like pennyroyal. But they don't. He never talks about canary reedgrass. He never talks about Phalaris brachystachys, which is 3% DMT,
right, DMT.
Very high in the Mediterranean. But we see it in the art. And I will contend and fight anybody that says that stick, the Dionysian stick, because there's statues of Dionysus with a mandrake pod on top of his head, for crying out loud. It's not about the drugs. There's pottery with Adonis, which is basically another Dionysian god, that is coming out as the head of the mandrake on art, on pottery. So for them to say, well, that's not what that's about, that's ridiculous. It is about that. And that stick that they say is a pine cone. Look at the literature. I have a paper from 2019 where scholars are arguing about it's a pine cone on a stick or an artichoke on a stick because they think it looks like one. No, it looks exactly like Phalaris brachystachys, which is a high DMT content canary reedgrass. I believe, in my opinion, that they knew about that and they were utilizing it. There's also other pictures that look like different species of the canary grass. And guess what? 42 of the species have high levels of DMT, more than acacia. And why that's important? Because the Egyptian mythos, all of those gods, Horus, Isis, and others, they came springing out of the acacia tree, quite literally. So for people to think that this doesn't have anything to do with DMT or things that they see on the journey, it's just ridiculous to hypothesize another conclusion.
Yeah, we were talking about this one here, but yeah.
I also think that like the dynamic of like the only reason this is a hubbub, like when you're talking about like, but they got this from here, they got this from here, look at this trail record, and if it wasn't Amon cracking open this window, we'd still be arguing over, is Dionysus like Jesus or whatever else, right? That it's really clear, right? But the only reason we're arguing over it is because one specific religion is claiming they came up with all of it, and everybody else is fucking wrong and is copying it. Yeah, well, like if it wasn't this whole big thing, this big like tyrannical thing that created the Dark Ages and infested everything and is like, claiming to be the one true power and everything else is evil and all this other stuff, wasn't claiming that. If it was just like other beliefs and religions were like, oh, well, they were influenced by that, and they were influenced by that. They looks like the Indian people were influenced here by these other people near Alexander or whatever else, right? So no, like no one's going, you copied. The reason why it's like a huge argument where we have to make a plagiaristic, I think, angle is because only one of them set up the claim of absolute divinity and the absolute one way and the absolute, and it's Christianity. And like, so like if they
We're
didn't
all
claim
cool
that,
with
if it was
theory.
more like Rome where they came in, they're like, oh, you worship the sun god, we call him Apollo or whatever, and you can call him whatever else, that's cool. There wouldn't be this whole dynamic right now. There wouldn't be all of this tension. Not to mention, it's completely like there's zero footing on, as far as I can see, every single level, zero footing that there's no way in hell from how their language works, how the history works, how the archaeology works, how all the other historical stuff around it, like and just everything we know, none of that creates a pattern that this specific religion had these specific ideas, this specific way that's like this weird non-drug way or whatever else, and that's the answer, and everybody else took from them, and they're the one. Does that make any sense, like that whole angle, why it presses up against everybody?
Yeah, and I agree that I'm with all you
And
guys. It doesn't even matter.
no one
My opinion,
acknowledges that when they're not,
take all that stuff where you have these people fighting, whether it's Ahmed and Kip Davis or whoever, Wes Huff, take all that and throw it away for a second. I agree with you, Chase, but just see what they're trying, like the bigger picture, 60,000 foot view. What are they getting at? There's different paths that they took. Some of them say there's a teleology, right? Where they say, we know what the end is. The Christian narrative is a cheap answer to the mystery of saying, we know how this ends. But guess what? You can debunk any Christian by just going to that verse where Jesus says, I'm going to come back. You know why? Because he says, I'm going to come back in your lifetime. And he's talking to his disciples. They all died. He never came back. So at best, he's an empath. And at worst, he's the best deadbeat dad. And they're all eating cereal with water because he went to get milk and he never came back. That's what they are. And it's to WitchDoctor's point. To WitchDoctor's point, they're not bad people. The grandma that wants to love people and show love for people
my
and
grandma,
stuff like that.
yeah.
I get it. She's probably a really lovely woman, but she's been lied to. She's been lied to. That's what Chase is getting up. That's you getting it.
She hates what I believe. If she knew all of it, but she doesn't. But I think I'm almost protecting that, if that's a fair statement. But hey, guys, Cross Bible's now about to go live. Real quick, let's do the sign off, Mr. Marcel.
Oh yeah, yo guys, thanks for coming. We'll go live again tomorrow, I guess. Yeah.
I'm gonna jump on again. This was just I was at the gym and I felt like it, so we just But we'll see you tomorrow, bro. All right, Mr. Chase.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody should just keep keep trying to learn ancient Greek and keep reading tons of sources and all that other stuff, and not try to come at it from an angle to try to, like, where you just go through a certain direction to try to cherry pick what you think's going on, see if you can paint a bigger picture, set back for a little bit, and then check out all the stuff that TigerShark talks about. And he sent me tons of stuff that is outside all of the main kind of conversation we're having right now, but it's just archaeological evidence and all kinds of other things of all of these different drug rituals from all over the world and all the similarities that they're sharing and all of that stuff, like where and like see if you could see if you can look at it from that angle, and then go back and look at this stuff. And I don't know how you'd make the argument that none of this has anything to do with drugs, and it's like a weird commercialized Americana 1990s version of like the text and stuff. I just don't know how you can make the connection. So just keep learning, I guess. Keep reading, trying to look at the bigger picture instead of just siloing off in one direction. So
it's like the beginner's Bible that you can watch that used to come on like PBS, that cartoon. I think the three of us probably feel the same, as if that was the version they learned and then it never matured itself. There was no greater mystery for them to eventually one day learn. It never happened. So we're still stuck with, Jonah and the whale and, you know, bring down the walls of Jericho, you know. So, and I do think that they make great kid stories, just like how the Greek god stories make great kid stories. But then there's the greater mysteries. There's the Hollywood version of Troy, and then you have the real version of Troy. It's a little different. I love Brad Pitt, but I guess they couldn't get him to do that. So anyway, I appreciate it, Chase. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, and wrapping up that Jericho thing. Jericho never really happened, also, by the way, because there was no people there to sack the city when they said it was supposed to happen. So even if you take the range, there was nobody there to even sack and kill. So that whole thing is bullshit. And a lot of those wars actually are. But just look at the history. There's a lot of stuff in literature outside of the Greek text that everybody should be aware of. If you're a Gnostic fan, just because I don't hate the guy. It's just I think there's a lot more information there. But if you are a Gnostic fan, he was scratching the surface on all that stuff from Iran that influenced the Mediterranean world, and vice versa. Some of that stuff went the other way. It was a two-way street.
We'll have you both on again, and then what we'll do is we'll iron out all those wrinkles, because I'm sure that the comments today, I'd rather just have him on, and we'll bring the questions up one by one, and we'll see what the latest consensus may be, because there might have been a change, and I haven't kept up the best. I'm trying to defend everybody and support everyone equally. But everyone's a really big fan of you, bro. So I definitely want you to be available.
And Danny Jones, guys, he had Strassman and the other guy that was working with Strassman. He hasn't had anybody from Imperial London College yet that did the DMTX experiments. However, there was another dude that was on his show that was saying that the NDEs have nothing to do with internal pineal gland release of DMT. However, if you really want to look at that research, because there are two camps, I forget that guy's name, which he was pointing to, like one researcher, cardiologists and stuff like that, with people that had near-death experience. Look at the Imperial London College and Dr. Strassman's work, because they say the exact opposite. And a lot of people on your own show, like Chase and others, have had NDEs, and they've also done DMT, and they experienced very similar things. So just because one guy's there saying it, there is a whole group of literature, there's a whole camp and school of academics and scholars that show otherwise in the data. So these are things that are prescient at the time. But yeah, anyways, cheers, guys. Thanks for having me.
Dude, man, thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. All right, guys, that's it for today. Real quick, let me do my disclaimer as I sign off. You know, here at WitchDoctor, we are a research team. I have guests from all different walks of life, all four corners of the earth, and different specialties, hobbies that are absolutely viable research, you know, whether it be, you know, religious related stuff, or whether it be entheogen related stuff. We have a great crew of people that have come through the show, you know, everything from guys with degrees in languages, guys with very big familiarities and working knowledges in different languages that we're all fans of. And yes, formal invitation once again to Dr. Amon Hillman to come on and have an open conversation about any of the questions we may have. We'll give you the floor, and hopefully you can judge from our atmosphere here that it won't be a shark attack or an ambush in any kind of way, because all of my friends are very, very big fans, including myself, and even Neil has said he's still a fan of the material. So Dr. Amon, Neil, Stephen from Cross Bibles live right now, but he, of course, always has an invitation. And we're going to try to get some of these juicy topics back up and cranking. Today was good. Today would have been the day if everybody wasn't going live to send the links and just battle royale a little bit and let me sort of moderate. But hey, like I said, when you pull the live streams out of your ass, they end up being some of the best ones. So I will see y'all later. Peace. Take care. Hope to see y'all all soon.